Okay, I've got my right hand wound coil here, my 3/4 bar inside it. And I want to show I had made a mistake and I was wrong, but I want to show this first. It will show a pole all along it till it gets to that dead spot, and then the other pole, okay? That's what it does, north and south. This is right hand wound coil. Incoming side is south to the dead spot, inertial plane, then north from there on out. And that's fine and dandy. But what I wanted to show is it does show a pole without a core, but I have to put the meter inside. There it shows a north, there it shows a south. And I get a little south there, but I get a little north there on the ends. On this big coil, it does show that. The little coil didn't. So it shows the rotation there, but I still believe it's coming, the ether charge is coming inside the coil here. It's forced in, and here it's forced to loop back and go in, and they're both rotating in the same direction. And I wanted to show that I was wrong on how that worked. Next, I'm going to show you how the ball bearing acts inside here, which was brought up by Ovid Apt. I'm not sure what that name means, OVED, APPR, Apper, who commented on my last video. This is partly for that, but I will show the ball bearing next, then I'm going to move on to a different coil he also mentioned, and we'll do that. Okay, here's the ball bearing. I'm trying to get where you can see the red part possibly. I've got it right here on this end of the tube, if you can see. I'll swing this in, hopefully. I know it's not focused really great for this, but you can definitely see what it's doing. So I'm going to energize, and you'll see the ball is going to go a little past center and then come back to center. And 1, 2, 3. And that's what it does. And it rolls straight, just as if it's rolling downhill. Okay, now I've got the bearing at the other end, at the south end, the incoming current side, the positive side. I'm going to do it again. 1, 2, 3. And there it goes to the center. And like I said, it just rolls as if it were rolling downhill back and forth through the coil. You know, if you lift the coil up on one end, it rolls. The other end, it rolls. Now we'll move on. Okay, what I have here is another coil, a set of coils. There's two separate coils here. This one on your left is right hand wound. The one on the right is left hand wound. So I got it kind of backwards. But I want the positive side coming in on the right hand, and then this one is left hand wound. What I'm going to do first is tie these two together for the first demonstration. I'm going to tie them together. And what this does, the incoming side of the right-hand coil is a south, the outgoing side is a north, and the incoming side of the left-hand wound coil is north again, and then it comes out south. And I'll put the rod in and show you, and what you'll see is actually the wires will actually push against each other. You'll see a little movement in the wires. They'll push away from each other because I've got two norths, south to north, right-hand wound, and north to south, left-hand wound, so these two are going to push away from each other. It's direction of rotation. And it doesn't matter that this one's pulling in that way, this one's pulling in that way inside the steel. But out here, the two poles of rotation are opposite because of the direction of winding of the coils. But first I'm going to let you see the wires move when I energize. 1, 2, 3. If you watch the wires, they'll push away from each other. They'll go, that one will go that way, and the right hand will go to your left. The left hand wound coil will go to your right. 1, 2, 3, they move. They move just a little bit. So now I'll show you the poles. Right hand, south, north. Left hand, still north. The whole middle's north, and a south. So I've got a south, a double north, and a south. Okay? And when you put the ball bearing or anything in there, it pulls the ball bearing to the center of this one from this end, and it pulls the ball bearing to the center of this one from that end. It gets in the middle of both. I can show you that in a minute, but what I wanted to do before that was take these apart, and what I'm going to do now is put the negative directly here, and then I'm going to put the positive over here and the negative here, so that they're basically, I'll have a south and a north, and a south and a north. Even though they're wound opposite, I'm going to have them in conjunction. They'll be coherent with each other. They're going to pull together, and I'll show you that. Let me get some wires on this, and I'll show you. Okay, so now I've wired it differently. I've got the positive coming in this end of the right-hand wound coil, going to the negative, which makes it south to north. Then I have the negative on this end of the left-hand wound coil, and the positive on the output end. So they're both feeding in towards each other and then going out ground. So now what I have, and I'll show you, I'm going to have a south, north, north, south. Or no, south, no, north. South, north, south, north. They're almost in conjunction with each other. Like they're coherent, wound, or they're wired coherent. South to north, going this way. South, north, south, north. But what that does, it really heats up my wiring system here, and it melts pretty quick. But what I'll show you is I've got a south, nothing, a little bit of south there, and then a north. I'm not getting the north showing. South, and then a south, and a north. So we've got south, north, south, north. I'm not getting the north to pick up, but I'm getting the south. But they're in coherency with each other, but it really causes super heat. When I separate the coils in coherent direction, I get super heat because they're both coming into the ground, but they have separate wires for the positive. And even the positives are quite warm. But if you see that, it really didn't show much of a south. Where the north and south of this went coherent with their rotation directions, you don't get much of a reading. But I definitely got a south here and a north here, just like two magnets stuck together. But it really heats up the system since I'm running the coils independently, basically. I get double the heat. But it's like there's two magnets connected together. But what I want to show you also with that is when you put the bearing in that way, it still goes to the center of each one. And I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, this is with the coils wound independently. They're south to north. That means that they're coherent. There's the right-handed coil and the left-handed coil are wired coherent. They're north and south on each end, north and south towards each other. And if you'll watch, I'm going to hit the juice. The ball is on this end towards the left-hand wound coil. 1, 2, 3. It goes right to the center of that coil. And I'll show you what it does on the south wound, or the right-hand wound coil. You can see it down there. Let me put the paper behind it so you can see a little better, maybe. And I gotta lift the paper up to get my wire under it. Just a moment. Okay, now the bearing's on the other end at the right-hand wound coil, and it won't come to this end, it'll go to the center of that coil. 1, 2, 3, it stays right there when it's energized. So it goes to the center of both coils, either coil, and it doesn't matter how you wire them. Let me back up the camera and I'll show you what I mean. So with these two opposing wound coils, right hand, left hand, which just means the direction of rotation of the magnetic field inside and somewhat outside the coil. It didn't matter whether they were wound together positive, and then the positive went through here from one coil to the other and then to negative, Or if I ran positive to this end, positive to this end, and negative to the center, it still goes to the center of each coil. There's not really any other way I can wire these. Because if I wire each one positive to negative and positive to negative, it's the same thing. I can put positive to negative, but that's what I've got right here. Coming in positive, going out of that coil negative, coming into this coil, making it positive, and then going to ground. So that's positive to negative, which is coherent. Or incoherent, I'm sorry, that makes one coil wound one way, one the other, they're opposite. But when I put the negative here and positive in both ends, it makes them both spin opposite, or the same way when they get towards each other. But it doesn't matter which way you do it, the ball winds up in the center of each coil or the center of the long one wound coil, left or right. It pulls to the center of wherever the juice is not, where the coil ends. Wherever the coils end, it goes to the center of it, pulling in from both directions. That's what it is. It pulls in, even when they're this close together. Same pole, different pole, coherent, incoherent, it doesn't matter. They act independently. And if I put the coils real close together, coherently, they're going to act as one. And if I put them close together incoherently, they will push apart, but they don't act as one. If they're real close together, they're not going to act as one. Because one will be coming in south to north, and the other one will be north to south. So it's really going to push the wires apart like it did a while ago, the closer I get these in the incoherent wiring. The coherent wiring, it will probably pull them together because you get a south and a north. It's like two magnets will pull together. Two opposing magnets will push apart. Anyway, wanted to show that, and give me your thoughts on this later.